Welcome back to Cedar Cove Farm. I got another non-farm project. Maybe I'll have to start a spin-off channel. We'll see what traction on the videos is like. But I'm gonna do some work today on the 76 Buick Riviera, try and get it running, do a little work on it. So if you haven't seen my other video, I just kind of came into ownership of this vehicle recently. I poured gas down the carb. It runs for, as long as a little gas down the carb will run. Today, I've got a little electric fuel pump. I'm gonna bypass the fuel system because there is fuel in the tank and it's probably 18, 20 years old. So I don't really want to push that through the carburetor, gum everything up. So I'm going to do a little work, try and get this running. Figured I'd bring you guys along, see if you guys were interested and show you what I'm working on. So let's get going on this and see what we can figure out today. Maybe we can get it to run a little bit on its own. So first thing I'm going to do is just make sure there's oil, make sure there's coolant, check those things out, because if I do get it running, I don't want something else to be wrong. The coolant cap seems stuck, so I'm going to go grab some pliers to get that off. I did check the dipstick, it's got oil, it's in the right spot, so that's good. Let's see, make sure we got coolant before we get too far. All right, I got the overflow tank open. There's some coolant in there. I'm gonna put a little more in. It's a little low, so. Oh, I gotta find some coolant, but I know I've got some around here. Let's get that in. All right, so I got some coolant added. Oil looks good. Next thing, I'm gonna try and crawl underneath here, get the fuel pump disconnected and hook it up. I've got a little electric fuel pump. I'm gonna get the fuel pump disconnected. That's down underneath the car. So I'm gonna jack this up. I'm gonna give you a little bit of jack safety while you're at it. So I'm gonna get my jack up. I'll get this jacked up and then give you some jack safety things for anyone working on their vehicles. I've seen too many people I know not be as safe as they should, and I've started calling them out on it if I'm around, but just some tips for that. So let's get this jacked up in the air. First tip, as you're jacking, once you get it up a little bit, make sure your jack is still in a good sturdy position. On these old cars, there's a big frame member to put them on. On newer cars, look for jacking points, but make sure your jack hasn't moved. As you start jacking up, this floor jack's gonna roll, so make sure that that jack pad is still completely in contact, or as in contact as it was when you started. All right, next step, jack stands are a must if you're ever going to crawl underneath a car. This one looks damaged, so I'm not going to use it. Luckily I have a lot. So let me bring the camera down here. So what you're looking for underneath the car, you can see I'm on this frame member. What I want to do is get the jack up under one of these. This is called an A arm. It's shaped like an A, but that's a control arm. You can see it's directly connected to the frame, so that'll be a good spot to put the jack to hold some weight and still leaves the center free. So got this side, I know it's kind of dark, up as close to the A arm as I can get it. This whole time I'm staying out from under the car as far as I can, just in case that jack were to come down. Set you guys down here. That side's down. So now I'm gonna lower the jack slowly onto those jack stands. So you can see jack is free. So the next step, first step, use jack stands. That's something that a lot of people don't do. They leave a jack and they think that's good enough. Next step I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually shake the car. So set you guys down here. I'm underneath. If the car falls, but it's not on me. So you want to come to the side. Give the car a good shake. You want it to fall when you're not underneath it, because if it falls off the jack stands there and you're underneath, that's a big problem. It's not going to be a good outcome. At best, you're hurt. At worst, that may be the last car you were ever under. So that's just a safety tip for anyone crawling down underneath cars before you work on them. The next step, I'm actually going to get the jack. I'm going to roll it back underneath. So I've got it underneath, I've got it tight, and what I'm going to do is raise that jack. Sorry, I was looking to see where my fuel lines were, but I'm going to raise that jack so it's just barely touching the frame. What I'm doing that for is if for some reason the jack stand fails, the jack is here as a backup as I'm underneath. Now you can't always fit the jack back under where you're working, but if you can, it's just another safety measure that's worth doing because it's 5 seconds that could save your life. So I mentioned that I was going to undo the fuel pump and hook up my little electric fuel pump. Turns out I can't do that. I crawled down underneath. It's too dark for you guys to see. It's a hard line all the way. This is my fuel line in. It's a solid line all the way down to that fuel pump, and I can't put a hose on the end if I disconnect it. So I got to figure something else out. I don't have a barbed fitting or anything to put on the end to hook up. So we might have to just take off the supply line to the fuel pump that was rubber and tee in the electric pump there and let the mechanical pump do its work. We're still not sucking out of the tank that way, but I think that might be my best bet. I have now got, you can see this black hose, that's a fuel line hooked directly to the fuel pump. So we're gonna hope that works. The fuel pump works. I'm gonna just feed that line into this gas can Tip for anyone trying to get an old car started again, use mixed fuel. So this is 40-to-1 or whatever for my weed eater and my chainsaw. That has oil in it. These old engines haven't run in so long that the cylinder walls probably don't have oil in them anymore, or on them. They're not coated, so that'll help just get some oil in there before the oil pump starts going. Next thing is to hook up the battery. So I've disconnected that after the last time I had it on. With these old vehicles, when you first hook up the battery, make sure you smell for anything burning. Who knows what mice have decided to chew what wires. So you don't want your car to burn down, some electrical fire to happen. So I have that tight. Like I said, I've had this hooked up, but I unhook it because I don't know. I'm not out in the shop every day, so I keep it unhooked so something doesn't start on fire. Battery's hooked up. Fuel pump is hooked to a new line that I will hook to or put into my gas can, and then I'll just pour a little down the carb and we'll see if we can get it running enough to start sucking out of the gas can. Let's see what happens.
Versus people who literally like are highest rated at the game within Riot and also the developers for the game. So they too is a little bit of a clap.
Yeah, I did see some of the pro players making kind of passive aggressive, or some of the content creators are making kind of aggressive comments about Riot setting themselves up to stomp on these things.
Yeah. They too is but the competition is fun.
Rez, I don't know if you got a chance to talk to any of the voice actors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, dude.
So I saw the day after you guys had you guys, and he was just talking about how he was still recovering from the night before, where like the bartenders had just loaded him up with alcohol because he said he needed to wait for 15 minutes for that.
Yes.
But I also got.
All right, it ran for a little bit. I think what's happening is the fuel pump's not pumping up. That's why it wouldn't restart here this last time. It ran off of what I poured down the carb itself, but it didn't keep going. So I'm gonna actually disconnect this line here and see if we get anything to come out of the fuel pump. But so far, so good. Everything, it seemed to run real smooth, actually, really good. So let's get that line off and see if anything's coming out of there. So in my little test here, I did get fuel to come up through there, so I'm going to reconnect that fuel line. Maybe I just need a little more in my can. It's getting pretty low, but the fuel pump does seem to be working, so I'm going to hook that back up. And it was clean mixed fuel, so the right stuff was coming out. So let's get that hooked up and maybe it'll run on its own. All right, I got plenty of fuel in the can down underneath. Let's see if we can get it to run for a couple minutes. little smoke. Looks like just some oil burning off of the header. The fan just kicked on, so that means we'll at least have hot air inside the cab. Let's go fire it back up and see if it'll get going. Get the vacuum line unplugged. Might help a little. We got a bit of a leak. I think that's fuel. I'm gonna let that clear out a little bit, dry up, evaporate. It's still dripping. That's why I kind of shut the car off real quick in a hurry. I can't really see anything from here on why it's coming out, but I'm gonna try and get underneath there and figure that out. I got the fuel cleaned up. It seems like it's coming from the tank, which isn't hooked up to the fuel pump. So I don't know why that is. So I'm gonna plug that line and get it plugged off, but that's all I'm gonna do today. It's getting pretty smoky in the shop and I've got the garage door open, but it's cold outside, so I don't wanna open it all the way. But that's all I've got today. I'm gonna continue to get this thing running. Based on today's progress, I don't think it's going to be very hard. I think it's going to be more checking over things, getting rust flushed out of the tank, and going from there. So thanks for hanging out with me. I know this is a little different than the videos I normally post to the channel, but if you like them, let me know. I'll keep posting them. If you don't like them, I'll stop. Hey, I do what the viewers request. So thanks for coming out to Cedar Cove Farm. We'll catch you later.